Welcome back to the Hard Skills Show, where we take a deep dive into the most challenging soft skills required to navigate leadership uncertainty, complexities, and change today and into the future. I'm your host, Dr. Mira Brancu, psychologist, leadership consultant, and founder of TowerScope. And today we are talking about the best intersection of soft and hard skills, where they go, right? So we're talking about what actually breaks organizations when they adopt AI and the human-centered approach that puts them back together. So let's rethink your AI strategy. We are in season 9 when we're focusing on strengthening workplace culture. And I think this is a really good, interesting discussion. I don't think a lot of people think about AI integration within culture strengthening, but I think once you hear our guest's perspective, you will make the connection quickly. So let me introduce our guest to you today. Wayne Williams is the founder of Perspective Tech and a subject matter expert on AI and human-centered design. He is a co-author of the white paper, The Intersection of AI and Human-Centered Design, and Connecting the Dots to Entrepreneurship. Wayne serves as a board advisor for the Harvard Business Review Advisory Council, the Center for Science and Public Interest, Yale School of the Environment, and ACLU, and was advisor to the White House Council on Hunger, Nutrition, and Health. Welcome to the show, Wayne.
Thank you. Welcome, everyone is here. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So, yes, you have such an interesting background. Your experiences range from hunger policy to environmental work to AI. How do these connect for you?
They for me because I think for me, when I think about all of the things that you just mentioned, I don't know how we can escape the human factor. No matter where we at, what industry we're in, for profit, nonprofit, it is the human being that we really need to understand and connect with. Even if we're going to move them from hunger to health, we need to understand them and how they see hunger, how they see health. That helps us to formulate the approach, plan, and strategy. And I think, principally speaking, across the board, once we understand human beings in that way, it helps us to better not only give communication, but receive communication.
Absolutely, 100%. You're talking to the choir here, Wayne. So I'm thinking you've been in all of these rooms with people of major impact, right? They have huge reach, White House councils, Harvard advisory boards, major corporate leadership teams. And I'm wondering, what are they thinking about when it comes to AI? What are their greatest concerns? What are their greatest hopes? How do they discuss AI integration?
They are now taking a step back from the last 3 years.
Hmm.
The last 3 years was a rush to adopt AI, not to understand it. Certainly,
Yeah.
with ChatGPT and OpenAI emerging on the scene, it certainly created a rush for not just companies, but countries to begin to implement AI as a tool in the world. That is good. The problem was that they are now realizing that you have to understand the human being and the role that the human being is going to play in adapting AI because AI is designed to work with the human being and vice versa. But the human being have to be the lead in developing AI. We cannot develop AI solely as a tool. And this is where the industry is now coming to the realization after billions of dollars of pumping into the investment, they have yet to realize the return for those investments. And the question is becoming why not? And how can they recapture that investment?
And why is it that this was not a thought 3 years ago and now it is a thought? Like what transpired for them to start thinking, hold on, put the brakes on, we need to be thinking about this?
It is what we would call the feedback loop. You can't deny reality.
Uh,
And when you start off with any project, any idea, any innovation, we have to recognize that we're kind of in the blind. It's okay not to know. And unfortunately, human beings are not wired like that anymore. We need to know, and we need to know right now. The problem with that is that what we do know right now may not be the truth. It may not be what we need. So we took the position in the early days that we understood where we was going with AI.
Mm-hmm.
And AI is saying to us, I cannot go there. And after billions of dollars and years of doing this, we are now, as they say in the tech world, we are now listening to the data. And the data saying, take a step back because there are key components that we miss going forward. And we need to pause for a moment to recognize those key components and then begin slowly implementing them in.
So before we get to what is the data saying that indicates we need to take a step back, let's level set for just a second. When we think about incorporating AI or even generative AI in the corporate setting, what does that look like? What are some examples? What do we mean by that?
That's a very good question. And you will get probably different answers based on the industry. And that is partially the beauty of it because there's no one answer. And the reality is that for every industry, for every organization, for every team within that organization, we have to develop a unique approach. And that is really where AI have to go now to be able to not just give a generic or general approach, but we need to study that organization, the team, the industry in which that organization is operating in, and then develop AI.
Mm-hmm. And so then, what are the most common um, AI integrations or things that people are incorporating that is causing the data to all converge around, hey, we need to stop and think about the human side of implementation.
I think it would be the output. We're not getting what we intended to get or what we thought we would get by this time. By this
What
time,
did we think we would get?
well,
What we
what
were,
we thought we was going to get, it was kind of tricky, Doctor. It was kind of tricky because we had this idea solely on automation, and we thought that we were going to automate everything, and then things was going to run smooth. The problem was
yeah.
that the automation system that we was hoping for, it can't really be placed or in place without the human being automating it. We need to know more about, in other words, what is it that caused an individual or us to look at a particular movie? What is it that caused us to make the decisions that we're making? We need to have a better understanding of that as we go forward to develop AI to be able, generative AI, to be able to look at those things, which means the AI system now have to look at us in terms of our emotions, our culture, our politics. All those things are factors that will help us to develop a better AI system.
And do you think that um, we had to implement it first to see how it worked before we would know what went wrong with humans using it? Or do you feel like there was greater opportunity in the upfront development where they could have included humans to develop it in a stronger way? What are your thoughts on that?
I think you're right. I think we needed to create a situation where we had like a prototype. But I think what happened is we scaled up so fast
Mm-hmm,
that
mm-hmm.
we didn't really pay attention to the information that was coming back to us as we were beginning to integrate this into organizations and systems. The rush was, of course, the human rush, the economic rush, was we wanted to get there before other companies.
Yeah.
That's understandable, that's natural, but it interfered with a natural process. Had we started slow, The information or the small scale would have given us the information that we needed so that we could scale up properly. We scaled up so quickly. Now we look back in hindsight and we see that there are things that we missed, but we are so far out now that to fix that, to correct that, it's going to cause us a lot.
Yeah, yeah. And I think it's an interesting point, a good point that like our technological advances are moving faster than the human response and readiness. And what makes me think about how we manage change management right now is you got to get an executive sponsor, and then you've got to talk to everybody, and then you've got to get input, and then you got to try it, and then you've got to sort of so there's a in traditional change management, you need a lot of alignment before you even implement, because otherwise the execution is going to fall apart without the alignment, even if you have a strong vision. However, with how rapidly our technology is constantly changing, you don't necessarily have that luxury anymore. You kind of have to change your change management processes in a way. You kind of have to like just pilot, throw all the things at it, see what happens, see what breaks, and then realize, okay, now we've learned how humans interact with it. Now what? And you're right, it's a bit more costly, and yet at the same time, it is the reality of how technology works. Is that a good understanding of kind of the change management plus technology issue?
That is a good understanding. And I would only add that with that understanding, that change management technique, it have to adapt to these realities.
Yeah,
In other words, that change management technique would have been and was perfect, say, in another time, another circumstance. But with technology moving as fast as it is, and then you factor in the human beings' ability or inability to keep up, that how do you align those two? So
yeah,
we have to come up with a different model. And actually, there's yet to be a tool. We haven't developed it yet. It's moving too fast. So we
yeah,
have to find a tool that can move as fast as technology is moving.
yeah, yeah. Why is it that now, with the data that we have, it is going to be a more costly endeavor to try to um, use the data to apply to the human side of AI in order to make it run more smoothly? What is the challenge here?
Well, in short, the challenge is the human being. We really need to pause. When I say the challenge is the human being, we have to grow to recognize what we don't know and what we don't understand. We cannot bring alignment on something that we do not understand how it works. So those of us that's in this space, that's leading this space, we have to, humility is a great tool. That's how we learn. We have to accept the fact there are certain things that we cannot yet predict, understand, or do. No problem. Then we should begin to study those things so that we would know how to do them, and then therefore we can predict them.
Yeah, yeah. This is a good way to close out our first section here. We've kind of level set a little bit, and I'm super excited when we come back from the ad break. We are reaching an ad break. When we come back, I'd love to hear how human-centered design could be a potential solution to this big challenge. So you are listening to The Hard Skills with me, Dr. Mira Brancu, and our guest, Wayne Williams. The Hard Skills is sponsored by TowerScope, my leadership and team development consulting firm. You can learn more about it at gotowerscope.com. And the Hard Skills Show live streams on Tuesdays at 5 p.m. Eastern Time on LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, all over the place through talkradio.nyc. If you are here live with us on a Tuesday, this Tuesday, October 7th, 5 p.m., you can also interact with us. You can ask questions and we will respond. So we will be right back in just a moment with our guest.
Are you a conscious co-creator? Are you on a quest to raise your vibration and your consciousness? I'm Sam Leibowitz, your conscious consultant, and on my show, The Conscious Consultant Hour Awakening Humanity, we will touch upon all these topics and more. Listen live at our new time on Thursdays at 12 noon Eastern Time. That's The Conscious Consultant Hour Awakening Humanity, Thursdays 12 noon on talkradio.nyc.
Are you a high-achieving, growth-oriented leader? Are you interested in developing your authentic leadership while creating a healthy, inclusive workplace? Hi, I'm Dr. Mira Brancu, host of The Hard Skills on talkradio.nyc at 5 p.m. Eastern on Tuesdays, where we discuss how leaders develop the hard skills needed to make a greater impact. We interview experts, have live coaching, and tackle these challenges. Listen to The Hard Skills on Tuesday at 5 p.m. Eastern on talkradio.nyc.
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC. Uplift, educate, empower.
Welcome back to The Hard Skills with me, Dr. Mira Brancu and Wayne Williams, talking about AI integration and human-centered design. So we talked about AI for a moment. Let's talk about how human-centered design could be a solution to the challenges that we have found with uptake. Let's start with what is human-centered design? A lot of people are still not familiar with that. So what is that?
Human-centered design is, unfortunately, when we use the term, we use it like a concept or intellectually. Human-centered design really is a science. It is understanding the human being as you certainly we cannot understand the complete. I don't understand myself completely. But the key is understanding my limitations help me to understand what I can do, what I understand, what I can't understand. If I move forward without recognizing my limitations, I am prone to make mistakes. On a larger scale, we are making these mistakes because we are not really, I would say, we're not that self aware to understand our limitations. And limitations are seen as a negative. A limitation is not a negative. Uh, say humility is not a negative. I think those are the key elements that will help us to be able to escape the human nature, if you will, the trap of human nature. We have done this throughout centuries. And so I like to use a phrase, if I only knew then what I know now. But there's a way that we can know not everything, but there's a way in which that we can know now some of the things that we do need to know. That means we take it step by step. We use the known to understand the unknown. We do not try to understand the unknown by the unknown. We start with what we do know and understand. Human centered design is designed just like that. It goes into the human being and understand how the human being is going to think, behave, what culture is he or she coming from? What language, not verbal language, what language do he or she speak? What is their understanding? What is their perception? What is their emotional level? All of those things are key factors in designing a human centered design approach, not just to technology, but to life.
And so, can you give an example of what that would look like applying the human-centered design science to addressing a large nebulous question like making AI work for humans?
That's a good question. And what we would do, we would start with the human. And what we would do is start them on a very small scale and find just a piece of that AI, if you will, and then we integrate that into that human being. Meaning the tools, the software that we develop, the AI that we develop, We will pass that into the human being, watch how the human being interact with that, because in that interaction is the information or data that we're looking for to form the next step of AI, if that
Mhm.
make any sense.
Yeah. So,
It's,
like, for example, it's almost like if I was at work and they decided to incorporate a specific chat GPT specific for our environment, right? And I'm using it to try to like improve my emails and the content that I'm writing. Would it be like you actually observing me do that, or you looking at my output or input and output? What would it look like?
I am watching every keystroke and timing how long it takes you to do that. That will help me to understand where you may be confused at. I find that, and it's that area that I see that we need to develop a program, a specific program for that particular user.
Interesting. And do you need how many people do you need to feel like you have valid data on people within a certain organization or environment in order to make adjustments?
In order to make the adjustments, I would start with just the team that's going to be using that. For example, if you are thinking about using ChatGPT to integrate it into your work, and you plan to use it for emails and set up a automated system, then I would start with those that's going to use it like that, because you're going to teach me how to develop the AI system for you uniquely, where you are having say missteps at, where what you don't understand, where you may be intimidated at. Those things help me to understand, because if I'm intimidated by the use of AI because I don't understand it, I want to remove that out of the way, because as long as that is part of that individual's working in interaction with AI, we can't get a good product, can't get a good output. So we need to track all that to understand the human being's use of AI, and then develop the AI system that will help, because they co-creators. They're creating the next step together.
Yeah. And so if I'm an organizational leader and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, like what Wayne is talking about is super time intensive. This is, I'm
Yeah.
sure, very costly, right? Um, what is the difference between the cost of overlooking, dismissing human-centered design when it comes to AI integration versus incorporating it? What have you seen?
What we're seeing is what we talked about earlier. When you look at the amount of money that has been went into AI development into the billions, that is the cost. And we are at a point now with AI development where we have not yet, we are pumping billions of dollars into systems that we're not getting the return back yet. So either we honestly begin to look at that, address that, and begin to fix that now, or we can continue to go down that financial black hole, if you will, without being able to produce the end results that we have. There's certain hard truths that we're going to have to deal with. We're
Yeah.
not going to escape that.
So I'm thinking about like the metaphor of sunk cost fallacy when you've got like this car that you invested so much money in, and in the beginning it was like the fanciest car ever. It was talking to you. It had blings and dings and so fancy. And over time you started realizing you're not using half the stuff. You don't even know how to use half the stuff. The things that you are using in this fancy car are not working the way that you hoped, and yet you keep avoiding getting trained up in using it. You're not even using the most useful qualities about this car or something like that. That's kind of like, does that is that a good metaphor for how somebody like in a leadership role could think about the um cost benefit analysis of engaging in this kind of work?
That is a perfect metaphor, because that metaphor, if accepted by leadership, it puts leadership in the decision making position. Either we will teach that person how to use that car, or that person will continue to, in other words, that person is not getting the best out of that car. You
Right.
think about the phone. I mean, how often, the phone, how many of us actually know how to use it? I mean, we make phone calls. This is the whole world in your hand, and we're just making phone calls and texting. The things that we can do with technology, we are maybe touching on 20% of it. 80% of it is not being used.
Yeah. Well, that reminds me of when my mom first switched over to like a fancy phone, right? And the iPhone or whatever, and Google. Um, and she was using it for a watch. Why pay all of that money to use it for a watch?
Yeah.
There's so much more you can do with it. But it was too overwhelming, too much. And she just said, forget it, right? And that is the cost, literal cost of getting your employees this fancy stuff that they refuse to use because it's too much, it's too confusing, it's too overwhelming. It's or they're frustrated with it because they haven't gotten the appropriate training or support, or it's not fitting into their like normal day-to-day lifestyle of how they work, right?
That is correct. And that's what we as organizations and leadership have to look at. You don't want to give this tool to anyone. We need to understand the people that we are integrating this tool with, because if they are the way that you just described them, they would not yet be the right candidates. Let's find the best candidates in that organization, candidates that are more adaptable to using AI, more up to the challenge, and let's integrate AI into the system with them. And then we can use them as teachers to help others that may be fearful of the integration of AI, that may be just using a phone for a clock. And we can show them that you can do more with this. And I think as we take them along, showing them the possibilities with AI, I think gradually they will begin to adapt to these systems.
Yeah, I was just going to ask about, under what conditions, when should organizations and executives think about making an effort to infuse human-centered design? You mentioned one of those conditions is um, when you have high-level folks with excitement, interest, capability to adopt as like early adopters, right? Um, that's a good case. Are there other sort of situations, cases, um, when or context when leaders should be thinking about using human-centered design in order to optimize AI and other technologies?
Yes, the short answer to that is projects. When we have a team working on a project, we need to be gradually, slowly integrate that into that project.
Mm-hmm.
Because we learn from our experience, we learn from doing. Of course, we all know in the last 4 or 5 years we've been in 1,000 training, and these trainings have, yes, they have given us a lot of information, but our best way to learn is actually applying immediately what we learn. So find a project and integrate gradually, slowly, a human-centered design approach into that AI system for that project. And when they begin to see the return of their time, then that's get buy-in.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. If you've already gotten, AI or generative AI, in order to enhance and optimize people's work, and there's a project coming up, it makes perfect sense. Like, hey, let's make this project, let's maximize the way that we use the technologies that we have with this project. And the best way to do that is, incorporate this human-centered design to make sure that people are actually capable of doing this well. and they're finding utility, and it's exciting, and it's, energizing instead of frustrating to use this technology, for sure. Yeah,
Yeah.
that makes a lot of sense. So somehow, I don't know how we got to this point so quickly. We're reaching another ad break. So when we come back, let's continue talking about AI, use cases for different situations, the impact on humans, and more. You're listening to The Hard Skills with me, Dr. Mira Brancu, and our guest, Wayne Williams, and we will be right back in just a moment.
Misalignment within your sales team or with a client stalls deals and creates unnecessary friction for you and the client, resulting in up to 37% lower win rate. If you're in pre-sales, sales management, or sales enablement, and you'd like to increase revenues, win rate, margins, client satisfaction, and stay competitive, this show is for you. Hi, I'm Art Fromm, host of the Making Seamless Sales Show. Please join me live Thursdays at 7 p.m. Eastern on talkradio.nyc.
Hey everybody, it's Tommy D, the nonprofit sector connector, coming at you from my attic. Each week here on talkradio.nyc, I host a program, Philanthropy in Focus. Nonprofits impact us each and every day, and it's my focus to help them amplify their message and tell their story. Listen each week at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time until 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, right here on talkradio.nyc.
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC at www.talkradio.nyc. Now broadcasting 24 hours a day.
Welcome back to me, Dr. Mira Brancu, on The Hard Skills with Wayne Williams. Wayne, we just got done talking about conditions in which thinking about applying human-centered design to AI integration makes sense. One of those is early adopters. The other is projects. Are there situations where that are not good for human-centered design application? And even more so, are there situations that you've seen where you've had early adopters or you've had projects where you thought, I don't think they're ready for this, or I don't think this human-centered design approach is quite right for this question?
Yes, and honestly, that's part of the process, and we should not fear that. And I can't fear the missteps. They're going to happen. My job is to learn from those missteps, to embrace them, because as we all know, we learn more from that misstep than we did from the success. So there are many times that I approach a project, and honestly, I approach it wrongly. I need to accept that and understand that it's okay, because the goal, principally speaking, is to create an environment where we can learn. We need to create an environment where the early adopters can come in, but we have to find a way to work them gradually into those that may not be early adopters. So that means we have to begin to think about the culture that we have in that organization and begin to find entry levels where we can begin to gradually change the culture, because it's not just the AI, it is the human being. And Dr. Bronco, I think that's what we're trying to get around, the human being. We can't get around that.
Yeah, dang.
Yeah.
You can't.
You can't get around that. And any one of us, or any institution or organization or leadership that I would say that is courageous enough and bold enough to understand that and the value of attacking that. Don't worry about getting it right. Don't worry about it being perfect. Be bold enough to recognize it and then begin to gradually address those human factors, that we can begin to understand the role that human beings play in our organization. In all of our success, we're not going to be successful without them.
Yeah. Yeah. And this actually gets to the next thing I've been thinking about, which is, yeah, the human factor. We make mistakes. We don't always get it right. And in your white paper, you mentioned that AI systems can also unintentionally perpetuate biases. How do those look like? How do they contribute to the problem? How does it interact with human bias?
That is a good question. It interacts because the human bias is being gradually put into the AI system. The human bias is if I have a limited experience with, say, technology or with culture or with language, as I develop the AI system or tool, I have no other choice but to put that into that tool. That is my bias, my likes and dislikes. And so I put that into the system. That system that I just created determine what is right and what is wrong, but it is based on my own biases. I have to get out of the way, which means that we have to integrate when we think about developing these systems. We have to really integrate all spectrums of this in this system. We have to be clear about our limited experience. You know, they say that the human being actually have, I think, 150 different biases. That's a lot.
Mm-hmm.
That is a lot. Now, how do we tackle all those? We can't. So what we have to do is first and foremost be honest enough as we develop these tools to understand that I have a limitation and bring other people in that may not have my limitation and let them be a part of not just the early phases, but they also have to be a part of the decision making process.
Yeah. This actually brings me to a very tough question. I'm curious if you have any thoughts on this. Given how many biases humans bring, and they incorporate it in all the things that they design, including AI technologies, which are supposed to make our lives easier, but somehow we still make it more complicated, more difficult for ourselves. Some might start thinking, why not develop a system without humans? Or a system that replaces humans, right? So that we could try to eliminate all the messiness that humans bring to ruin our perfect AI system. And I'm sure you're not for that, but I'm curious, why not? Right? Why not? What is the sort of opportunity here of humans interacting with AI if we could find a way to address these biases that are, in both systems, AI and human?
That's a good question. And I think for me, the answer is that whatever system that we develop, it will be developed by human beings. And those human beings that develop that system, they, in their attempt to escape creating a biased system, they have just in fact created a biased system. You
Hmm.
can't escape this.
Again, back to we cannot bypass humans.
You cannot.
Yeah. So, it do you feel like AI? We when we started talking, you said like 3 years ago, AI was made for automation, right? It was to simplify and make us more efficient.
Right.
But I know that you've also referenced the potential for AI to have a positive impact on human, not just as a source of automating, but also creating positive impact. So, where do you think like AI stands right now? Is it simply to replace routine tasks and fetch information, or is there an opportunity here that if we could work hand in hand, it could actually improve our world?
There we are really in a position where an opportunity exists where we can use AI to improve our world. But in order for us to do that, we have to first understand what is AI and how do it work. We can't, if you think of AI as a tool, it's not, it's something much more than that, which is funny because, when we think about this technology, whether it be algorithms or AI or data or whatever, we think about these things as a singular entity, and it's not.
Mm.
AI systems are combined with other systems, and there's math within those systems that make those systems work properly. If the math is off, then those systems are not going to work properly. The output that we are looking for is not the one we're going to get. And so the idea of creating a system for us is that we have to really take a step back. I keep, for me, I tell my team, you can't forget me. It begins with me and ends with me. But here's the thing, I am fallible. So somebody need to help me to understand when I'm missing. That's not a bad thing. That is a good thing. The systems that we're developing right now is kind of bypassing that. I give you an example. It's like having a not good boss or someone that's not good in leadership. Someone need to tell them that, don't you think? At some point, someone need to say it
Yeah.
respectfully, wisely. Someone need to say to leaders, "You're good." I give you a quick story. I have a friend, and I kind of mentor him. He's in Charlotte. We was at a tech show in Charlotte, Smart City Design. And to make a long story short, I was talking to some people, and when I got done, and he's kind of younger than me, and he said to me, he said, "Wayne," he said, "your ideas are good." He said, "But your execution is horrible." And when he told me that, certainly you were human beings, right? I kind of looked at him, but I had to digest that because he was right. My execution was horrible. That don't mean I'm horrible. The execution was. Sometimes we do things that are not producing the outcome we want. That's okay. That don't mean that we're not good. We need someone to help us when we find ourselves in those situations.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, I'm curious, have you seen an organization get this right, be able to implement an AI solution well with human-centered design? And if so, what did it look like? What did they do differently?
I have not yet seen which is good because any organization that will get it right this early really would be getting it wrong. They will get something right. And so, because we're so early into this, we're not nowhere near even the middle. So I see organizations changing their approach now, and that is good. But
Mhm.
have they yet gotten the concept right or the science right? Not yet. The science could be made right if we follow the science. You can make it right. If we follow the data, you have to really follow the science. And then you can make it right. The science will make it right, not us.
Yeah, yeah. We are reaching another ad break. And so when we come back, let's continue talking about what would it look like from start to finish, for especially now that some companies are in the middle of this process, what's left that they're missing with the science of applying human-centered design. So you're listening to The Hard Skills with me, Dr. Mira Brancu, and our guest today, Wayne Williams, and we will be right back in just a moment.
On Frank About Health, we're not just talking healthcare. We're managing disruption and innovation. Over the last 4 years, I've taken you from epilepsy and COVID to mental health, caregiving, and now the front lines of healthcare transformation. Stay tuned for a healthier future as we bring on the innovators, professionals, storytellers, and advocates who show you how to own your healthcare every Thursday at 5 p.m. Eastern Time on talkradio.nyc.
Are you a purpose-driven individual looking for deeper healing, clarity, and growth? Welcome to the Expansion Room. a transformative space for purpose-driven individuals. I'm Siobhan Larice, host, licensed therapist, and coach. Join me every Wednesday at 5 p.m. Eastern Time on talkradio.nyc.
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC at www.talkradio.nyc. Now broadcasting 24 hours a day.
Welcome back to The Hard Skills with me, Dr. Mira Brancu, and our guest today, Wayne Williams. So, Wayne, you were telling me about how you haven't yet seen the full final impact of organizations applying human-centered design to AI integration because it's a little bit too early. And there's a big science to it too. And so I'm curious, what is necessary to get this right?
That is a strong question, Doctor, because what is really necessary is one, we have to do it gradually. This is going to take time to get it right. If we want to rush, we can get to a destination that we're going to have to adapt later. It's a question of, I think the old saying is an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of care. We have to decide that we want, as a society and as an industry, that we are willing to embrace that ounce of care, which means that we have to understand the tools that we are using and developing and how they are impacting us, not just in the organization, but how are they impacting society. We cannot ignore those factors because through understanding how they are impacting society, there's information or data in that that will help us to better develop a system that will allow us to be able to create the outcomes that are beneficial, that's there hidden inside of the AI, but we need to use it or go into the AI and application wise to be able to bring that out. I look at it like this. You think of a cell, all of the information that we need is hidden in that cell. You and I came from a cell, and here we are. Everything that we need to understand about AI is in what you would call the origin of the human being, meaning the interaction of the human being with AI. We need to study those things first, starting with the human factor to understand how the human beings see this and how the human beings see themselves. Because if the human being don't see themselves properly, the human beings bring into the table what? Their own biases, their own ideas, their own concepts. While they are good, we can't solely depend on that.
Yeah. One of the things that it's making me reflect a lot about is a lot of the newest technologies have been about helping us be more efficient with our time, right? Like let's take a lot of those calendar apps, right? Now, instead of us emailing each other a billion times about, does this time work? No. Does this time work? No. Does this time work? No. You can say, here's a link to my calendar app. Please find a time, right? Which technically helps us, right? And if I can train my calendar app, which I have, to be thoughtful about my preferences, it really does help me. However, there's been a number of advances where the organization's preferences to improve productivity and efficiency have created situations where we are actually, as humans, more exhausted because there's very little room to be human. And that includes, for example, Zoom after Zoom after Zoom meeting instead of what used to happen, which is 10 minutes to walk to this meeting and 10 minutes to walk to this meeting, and like breathing room space. And so now we have 13 meetings instead of 8 meetings a day or whatever, right? And so what you're saying is in order for us to think about the future of human-centered design and AI application, we have to take into consideration what humans need, but that can be at odds with what organizations want, which is minimal margin.
That is true. And that is the really the problem. We have to try to find the right balance. You have been able to you actually really explain the human centered design approach with your calendar. Your calendar know you now, but how did it get to know you? Because you gave it the information that it needed. So now you and your calendar are on the same page.
It's my best friend.
That's right. And so you trained your best friend.
Yes.
You train. And so with every piece of technology, and particularly like with AI, we have to train it, but we have to understand what we're training. The problem with the Zoom meetings after Zoom meeting, I don't see the technology as the problem.
Mm,
I think the human being is the problem. Because
mm.
somebody sent that Zoom link out. I was at like probably like you, I've been 1,000 different trainings in the last couple of years. And I can tell you, I know when I'm in a good training or a dangerous one. They start with the saying that I know we got a lot of material to cover and we're going to try to get through it quickly. Once I hear that, I know that we're in trouble. I know that we are in a training or a meeting that someone did not really consider. What are we doing there? More information is not better. More information is not better. And so we are in a cycle since the pandemic where we are giving out so much information, but not the room or the time to process it. Because to
Mm.
walk from one room to another room in route to a meeting, that is time to prepare for that meeting, if that makes any sense. That's
Yeah.
time to think about that meeting. That's the human factor. But when you're just on a Zoom and you on a Zoom for an hour, and then the next one is coming in 5 minutes, you never even get a chance to debrief. What did you just learn? What did you just? And so that to me is not a technology problem. I think that's a human problem.
Yeah. Yes. And what that informs me is also that as much as you might want to improve efficiency, it has an effect on effectiveness. I can't be as effective by the end of the day in any meeting if what you've done is improved my quote unquote efficiency with having more meetings, because I haven't had a chance to process, to think, to plan next steps, to rest, which humans actually need, for better or for worse. We need some rest in between, and we're most effective when there's an ideal balance of efficiency to rest.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, good conversation. And our our engineer said in the chat, it's more efficient in theory, but less efficient in practice.
That is right.
Very, very good.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. So if people want to learn more about your work, where can they go?
They can go to Perspective Tech website and I'll put it in the chat. And then, of course, if they want to learn more about that, they can reach out to me and I will also put my email address into the chat. Well, naturally, you can find it on the website. And I would be happy to sit down with anyone. Yes, thank you.
Yes, I'm sharing it right now. For those of you who are watching live or are going to watch the recording later, you will be able to see perspectivetechpa.org so that you can find out more about their work, their AI team, their mission, the white paper that I referenced. And all of this is also going to be in the show notes, how to access and contact Wayne Williams. And if there's one thing, Wayne, that you would like people to take away from our conversation together, what would that one thing be?
That one thing would be that I think as we enter into this, we need to really utilize and understand the value and power of critical thinking. Critical thinking, some say today, is the new superpower.
Mm-hmm.
What do that mean in application? That means that if I'm looking at or listening to someone, whether it be in an organization structure or my wife or whoever, if I'm using critical thinking skills, I can really hear them, understand them, and I can make better decisions.
Yeah, I think that's a great message because so often we want to short circuit and just have a simple answer, but the simple answer is not always the best answer. Sometimes you really actually need to spend time thinking about the right answer, not the simple answer, right? And that requires a little bit more critical thinking. So I did see that you shared in the chat, and I want to share it with others who are going to be listening and not necessarily able to watch. If you want to contact Wayne Williams, it is Wayne with a Y, WAYNE Williams at perspectivetechpa.org if you want to contact him directly. So, audience, what did you take away from today? And more importantly, what is one small change you can implement this week based on what you learned from Wayne? It could just be critical thinking skills, or it could be more than that, really deeply thinking about how you're integrating your AI into the world of work or others. So whatever that is, share it with us on LinkedIn and at talkradio.nyc so we could cheer you on and respond to you. The Hard Skills is also on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Twitch, Apple, Spotify, and Amazon Podcasts, and many other places. If today's episode resonated with you, share it with a colleague or leave a review. And if you're also looking for more personalized leadership development or team development support, you can also head to gotowerscope.com to schedule a consultation with me. Thank you to talkradio.nyc for hosting. Together, we will navigate the complexities of leadership and emerge stronger on the other side. Thank you for joining me and Wayne Williams today on this journey where we talked about one of the greatest, most interesting complexities of today's leadership, which is technology and AI, right? This is Mira Brancu signing off. Until next time, stay steady, stay present, and keep building those hard skills muscles. Take care, everybody.